Photo editing is a very highly contested topic within photographers. Some believe that you shouldn't edit your photos at all because it takes away the purity and the creative intention, or as an excuse that you don't know how to use your camera, or some religiously edit all their photos. I personally believe if you don't edit your photos, you're missing around 50% of photography and 50% of your photos' potential. Which is why I'm going to show you how I edit my photos for my Instagram page, which you can see some of the results in the link below. Before I start off, you first must have a good base when you're in your photo. A good base requires that you have your exposure is on point and you have a good composition going for your photo. This photo is a demonstration of what not a good base looks like. As you can see, it's too bright, the skies is blown out, the highlights are way too high, and there's nothing. Your eyes are confused. What should I be looking at? So, if you want to know how to not be in this predicament, I have a video on detailing on how to take photos with a good base, so you don't end up with pictures like this. This here would be something what we call like somewhat of a good base. Like I like to do before I start any photo, I like to start doing minor corrections. I use corrections very lightly because you cannot correct this photo, but you can make slight corrections to make it to your taste. Maybe composition I could crop in for proper, and exposure I can get it on point. So right now what I like to do, I'll crop it to my desired composition. Whilst you're editing, you might want to create an image in your head of what you want the photo to look like and what emotions it should evoke or the message it should have. So using rule of thirds, I'm just aligning everything correctly. I think that looks good. Right, so the composition's done. Now I use the basic tab in Adobe Lightroom Classic. So maybe exposure I play. Highlights will definitely have to go down. Right, then shadows, probably bump it up slightly. Yep. Whites are probably bring it down, blanks probably bring it up. Most of the time when you're playing with these toggles, don't do anything too crazy, like going all the way to one side. Highlights, it makes sense because it's a bright day. I shot this in midday, so it makes sense. So whenever you're going, especially with these ones, you don't want to do anything too crazy. Right, so that's the basic corrections done. Now I like to go put in some contrast. Contrast is very good as it allows you to add an extra depth to your photo. I like to first set up a tone curve, which allows for natural contrast to allow. So I like to make an S with my tone curve. So it's more, when it blends, the contrast blends in to be very natural. So I do it that way, and then you can adjust the slider here. I'll probably put it not too high. Probably just leave it the way it is. Now, next bit I like to go to is color. So color is very important as it tells you what emotions the photo will have. So red might be for anger or excitement, whilst blue might be for deep thinking or sadness or whatever. So I like to first go through the hue. So hue is saying what type of red should it have? Is it like a pinkish red, or is it like a somewhat of an orangish red? Or like, is it an aqua blue, or is it a very dark blue? So an example I'll show you is you can have a very aqua blue, or you can have a very dark purple blue. So you don't want to do anything too crazy on each side. You probably just want to play around with it with the image in mind. I'm thinking of what I want the photo to look like. So that's that. Orange, maybe I could play around with. No, not much. It's more of yellows. So I put the sun like yellows in like a bit of a warmish sense. Saturation is basically how aqua blue the blue would be. So example would be like this. So there's nothing at all. So this was popular at one point, but the trend has died. I highly suggest you don't do that. Or you can do it very dark, which makes the photo very unnatural, very artificial. So probably leave it something like that. Luminance is how bright of a color and what a photo would be to something. So maybe the blue might be brighter in an image, so it calls attention to the ocean or to the sky. So if I do something like that, all the blues are highly exposed. Now the sky is blown out. You don't want to have anything like that. So adjust it accordingly. This is unnatural, so play around with the sliders. I think that's good. Next is color grading. Color grading allows like the background color to put in play. What I like to do, I do a rainbow, just to see like what I want out of the photo. Maybe I'll just do something more orangish for the midtones. And for the shadows, I probably might go something like this because I want a warmish sense, like a film look, kind of film look I like to say. So probably play around. Think something like that. Maybe I'll just come back to that. Maybe I don't really like that look. Keep in mind that I like to do is when you're playing with your shadows and highlights, you want to have the colors on each opposite like color. So like orange is here, but I want to balance it out, so I put the blue here because they're on opposite sides. That's a trick you can use, but yeah. Depending on your photo, if you're shooting with a high ISO, where you introduce noise, you can use this panel to denoise your photo. But as you can see, there's not much grain happening. I don't see much grain, so I don't really need to go through that. If you're shooting at night, you probably might want to. Here you use your transformations. I don't personally play with them that much. But if you want to create a story, you can use distortion to create a sense of uneasiness. Yeah, this is usually distortion, so you can play with distortion or horizontal. You can play with the perspective maybe, but I like to leave it the way it is. So, sorry. So I like to leave it the way it is. I'll just probably put that 0. I'll leave it the way it is. Lens blur, that's his axis. Don't need to play with it. That's in beta. This is effects. I personally, for my style, like to put a lot of vignettes on my photos. This is because I'm only taking, my subjects are usually singular subjects. I don't have group photos, so I can afford to use vignettes to direct the attention to make my subject a salient image. Calibration is basically adjusting your color science, as each camera manufacturer's color is different. So Sony has more yellowish colors, whilst Canon has more magenta colors. So you play around with that over here. I'll probably show you an example. Tint how green or purple would the photo be. I think I'm happy with that. Reds, well, there's not much reds to play around with, so maybe blues would probably be a good idea. Like how blue, or it's like the color, it's like the hues, but like if you don't want to go to anything crazy. Right, well, so far looking alright, pretty happy. Now this is very powerful masks. Masks are very powerful as they can create like cues to like direct your viewer's attention towards a certain subject. I'll show you what I mean. So I like to use linear gradients. So basically what they do is like they're very like linear in how dark the photo will get. Like see over here, it's like very dark but progressive. It's very dark at the bottom but progressively like increases in exposure. So I just like leave it like that. I like to sandwich. My subject, so I put 2 linear gradients. Now if you're doing the sky you don't want to do anything too crazy like that. You want to make it natural, so I just slightly decrease the exposure in the linear gradient, in the linear mask. Then I make a radial gradient. I like to use radial gradients to put over my subjects. So like over here it's this pole. So I like to invert. So invert, that means everything except that is affected. You can see the red area. I like to decrease the exposure slightly, so this creates a salient image to look towards that area. So far looking great. I'm not too happy with how dark it is over here, so then you can just use your brush here. Then you can just color that in, brush that, probably brush this as well. Then I'll just slightly up the exposure. Yeah, they're looking fine. I'm pretty happy with this photo. This isn't the best, but you can see how much better that is. This was before, this is after. So much more better. So this is the power of photo editing, and this is why I believe everyone should photo edit. So I hope this tutorial was helpful to you. This was a long video, but this is the whole point of tutorials. I wanted to go through it with you so you could understand my thought process of when I edit my photos. So yeah guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Follow me on Instagram and subscribe for more.